Have you ever seen a cry for help that made no sound? You need to hear the story of Elias Miller. He was just a single dad, broken by the world, grabbing coffee with his deaf daughter in downtown Chicago. Then walked in Olivia Sterling, the city's youngest female billionaire. She looked perfect. She looked happy. But when she locked eyes with Elias, her hand dropped to her side. 2 fingers tapped her thumb, a closed fist, an open palm. Help me, he has a weapon. What Elias did next didn't just save a life, it exposed a scandal that brought an empire to its knees. This is the story they tried to bury. The rain in Chicago always felt personal to Elias Miller. It was a cold, grey sheet that washed away the tourists, but left the grime, the noise, and the people who had nowhere else to be. Elias sat in the corner of the Daily Grind, a high-end coffee shop nestled in the lobby of the Obsidian Tower. He didn't belong here. His flannel shirt was frayed at the cuffs, and his boots still had drywall dust from the morning's contracting gig. But he was here for Chloe. Chloe was 7 years old, with eyes the color of polished jade and a smile that was missing 2 front teeth. She was also profoundly deaf. "Hot chocolate," Elias signed, his large, calloused hands moving with a gentleness that contradicted his appearance. Chloe nodded vigorously, signing back, "With extra marshmallows. Please, Daddy." Elias smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in days. Since his wife passed 3 years ago, it had been just them against the world. He stood up to grab their order, his knees popping. He was 32 but felt 50. That was when the revolving doors spun, and the atmosphere in the coffee shop shifted. It was subtle, but Elias noticed. He had spent 6 years in private security before life humbled him, and old habits died hard. He clocked the entry. A woman walked in first. She was stunning, strikingly so. She wore a tailored cream coat that probably cost more than Elias's truck, and her heels clicked with authority on the marble floor. This was Olivia Sterling. Elias recognized her from the discarded newspapers on the subway, the tech CEO, the heiress, the ice queen of Chicago. But it was the man behind her who triggered the hair on the back of Elias's neck. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that fit too perfectly. He had a hand on the small of Olivia's back. To an observer, it looked intimate. To Elias, it looked possessive. The man's fingers were digging into the fabric of her coat, steering her, not guiding her. They moved towards the counter, bypassing the line. The barista, a young kid named Leo, looked terrified. 2 black coffees. To go, the man said. His voice was smooth, like velvet wrapped around a jagged rock. Elias was standing near the pickup counter, waiting for Chloe's cocoa. He watched Olivia. She was pale. Her makeup was flawless, but there was a sheen of sweat on her temple. She wasn't looking at the man. She was scanning the room, her eyes darting like a trapped bird. Her gaze landed on Elias. Maybe it was because he was the only one not looking at his phone. Maybe it was because he looked like he could handle himself. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The man, let's call him Brandon Walsh, a real estate mogul with a reputation for ruthlessness, leaned into her ear and whispered something. Olivia flinched. Then she did it. She adjusted her purse on her shoulder. Her left hand dropped to her side, obscured from Brandon's view by the counter, but perfectly visible to Elias. She tucked her thumb into her palm. She folded her fingers over the thumb. Then she opened her hand, the universal signal for help. Elias froze. He looked at her eyes. They were wide, pleading. She did it again. Then her fingers moved rapidly, spelling out letters in ASL, American Sign Language. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs. He knew ASL fluently. It was the primary language in his house. GUNJACKET. "Here's your cocoa, sir," the barista said loudly, sliding the cup onto the counter. Brandon turned his head sharply toward Elias. His eyes were cold, dead sharks. "Problem, pal?" Elias's mind raced. If he reacted now, if he tackled him, and there was a gun. The place was crowded. Chloe was 10 feet away. Elias forced a dopey, tired smile. He slumped his shoulders, looking harmless. "No, sir, just admiring the suit." "Sharp," Brandon sneered, dismissing him as a blue-collar nobody. He turned back to Olivia and grabbed her upper arm, hard. "Let's go." Elias grabbed the cocoa. He walked back to the table, his mind screaming. He set the cup down in front of Chloe. "Daddy," she signed, "you look scary." Elias took a breath. He pulled out his phone. He typed a message to his old contact, Garrett, a detective in the 4th Precinct. Obsidian Tower lobby. Olivia Sterling, male companion, armed. Hostage situation disguised as a date. "I'm following." He looked at Chloe. This was the hardest part. "Chloe, listen to me. We are going to play the secret agent game. You stay here with Leo behind the counter. Do not move until the police come. Can you be brave?" Chloe's eyes went wide, but she nodded. She was a fighter, just like her mom. Elias walked Chloe to the counter, flashed his old security badge to the terrified barista, and said, "Lock the back room. Keep her safe. Call 911. Then Elias Miller walked out into the rain. Elias exited the building just in time to see Brandon shoving Olivia into the back of a black SUV. The driver was already behind the wheel, engine running. There was no time for police. By the time Garrett got the dispatch out, Olivia would be gone. And if Brandon had a gun in a public place, he wasn't planning on a peaceful negotiation. Elias sprinted. He didn't run to the car door. That was suicide. He ran to his own beat-up Ford F-150, parked in the loading zone. He jumped in, ignited the engine, and peeled out just as the black SUV merged into traffic. The chase wasn't like the movies. It was slow, grinding Chicago traffic. Elias stayed 2 cars back. He watched Brandon's silhouette in the back seat. He was animating wildly, shouting at Olivia. The SUV turned toward the industrial district near the old shipyard. This was bad. It was isolated. Elias's phone buzzed. It was Garrett. "We have a lock on your GPS. SWAT is 10 minutes out. Don't be a hero, Miller." 10 minutes is too long, Elias muttered. The SUV pulled into an abandoned warehouse lot. The driver got out, a heavy-set guy, clearly hired muscle. Brandon dragged Olivia out of the back. She kicked him, her heel connecting with his shin. Brandon roared and backhanded her. She fell to the wet pavement. Elias saw red. He didn't wait for the car to stop completely. He killed the lights, drifted the truck behind a stack of shipping containers, and bailed out. He moved through the shadows, using the noise of the rain to mask his footsteps. Brandon was standing over Olivia, pointing a silver pistol at her. "You think you can leave me?" Brandon screamed, his voice cracking. "I own you, Olivia. I bought the board. I bought your debt, and I own you." "You own nothing," Olivia shouted back, wiping blood from her lip. "My signature is void if I'm under duress." "Then I guess I don't need your signature anymore," Brandon hissed, clicking the safety off. Elias picked up a rusted iron pipe from the ground. He was 20 feet away. He needed a distraction. He spotted a stack of empty oil drums near the driver. Elias wound up and hurled a loose bolt he found in his pocket. It clanged loudly against the drums. The driver spun around. "Who's there?" Brandon hesitated, looking away from Olivia for a split second. That was all Elias needed. He charged. He didn't scream. He didn't warn them. He hit the driver with a tackle that would have made a linebacker weep, driving his shoulder into the man's gut and slamming him into the car door. The driver crumpled. Brandon spun around, raising the gun. "Drop it!" Elias yelled, using the car door as a shield. "Who the hell are you?" Brandon panicked. He was a businessman, a bully, but he wasn't a soldier. His hand was shaking. "I'm the guy who saw the signal," Elias growled. Brandon fired. The bullet shattered the window of the SUV, showering Elias in glass. Olivia took the opportunity. She lunged forward, not away, and grabbed Brandon's ankle, yanking hard. Brandon stumbled. Elias vaulted over the hood of the car. He caught Brandon's wrist, twisting it outward until the bone snapped with a sickening pop. The gun skittered across the concrete. Brandon screamed, falling to his knees. Elias didn't let up. He put him in a rear naked chokehold, tightening his grip until Brandon's struggles slowed, then stopped. He went limp, unconscious. Elias released him and kicked the gun away. He turned to Olivia. She was sitting on the wet asphalt, shivering violently, her cream coat ruined, her face bruised. Elias knelt before her, raising his hands slowly. He switched to sign language, knowing she was in shock and verbal commands might be overwhelming. "You are safe. I am Elias. The police are here." As he signed, red and blue lights flooded the warehouse walls. Sirens wailed in the distance. Olivia looked at his hands, then up at his face. She didn't speak. She just lunged forward and buried her face in his chest, sobbing. Elias hesitated, then wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the rain until the SWAT team swarmed the lot. 3 days later, Elias was back on the job site, sanding a hardwood floor in a suburban renovation. The dust was thick, clogging his nose, but it was better than the sterile smell of the police station where he'd spent 10 hours giving statements. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Miller," he answered. "Elias Miller?" A woman's voice. Crisp, professional, but with an underlying tremor. "This is Olivia Sterling." Elias stopped sanding. He wiped his forehead. "Miss Sterling, how are you?" "I'm alive," she said. "Thanks to you. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I need to see you. Today." "I'm working, Miss Sterling. I can't just—" "I bought the renovation company," she interrupted. Elias blinked. "Excuse me? The company you work for. Hard Hat Reno. I bought it an hour ago. Technically, I'm your boss's boss. I'm giving you the day off. A car is waiting outside." Elias walked to the window. Sure enough, a sleek black sedan was idling at the curb. He sighed. "You rich people really don't understand boundaries, do you?" "Please," she said, her voice dropping the authoritative act. "Please, Elias." The car took him to the penthouse of the Sterling Spire. It was a glass castle in the sky. Everything was white, chrome, or gold. It was beautiful, cold, and lonely. Olivia was waiting on the terrace. She wore a simple silk blouse and jeans, hiding the bruises, though a small cut on her lip was still visible. She poured him a drink without asking. "Bourbon. Neat." "Good guess," Elias said, taking the glass. He didn't sit. "Why am I here, Olivia?" She turned to look at the city skyline. "Brandon Walsh is out on bail." Elias nearly crushed the glass in his hand. "What?" "I broke his wrist. He kidnapped you. He fired a weapon." "His lawyers are expensive. They argued it was a domestic dispute, that I went willingly, that you assaulted him. It's a mess. But that's not the worst part." She turned to him, her eyes haunted. "He knows about you. He knows about Chloe." The air left the room. "If he comes near my daughter—" "He won't," Olivia said firmly, "because you're going to come live here." Elias laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Lady, I live in a 2-bedroom walk-up in Queensbury. I'm not moving into your ivory tower. It's not charity, Elias. It's a job. I need a head of security. Someone who isn't on the payroll of my board of directors. Someone who can read a room. Someone who knows sign language because—" She hesitated. "Because I'm losing my hearing." Elias stared at her. "What?" "It's a degenerative condition. Meniere's disease, combined with nerve damage. Brandon knew. He used it to isolate me. He whispered so others couldn't hear, knowing I couldn't make out the words. He controlled the narrative. That day in the coffee shop, I saw you signing with your daughter. I knew you were the only one who could understand me." She stepped closer. "I can pay you triple your salary. I have a private wing for you and Chloe. The best doctors for her, the best schools. But mostly, I need someone I can trust. And you're the only man who looked at me and saw a person, not a bank account." Elias looked around the penthouse. It was a golden cage. But if Brandon Walsh was out there, and if he knew about Chloe— Elias couldn't protect her in a flimsy apartment with a broken lock. He thought of Chloe's smile. He thought of the medical bills piling up on his kitchen table. "I have conditions," Elias said. Olivia nodded. "Name them." "1. Chloe comes first. Always. If she's unhappy, we leave. 2. I'm not your servant. I run security my way. And 3, he took a sip of the bourbon, you stop letting people talk for you. If we do this, you learn to fight back." Olivia straightened her spine. The Ice Queen was gone, replaced by something sharper, dangerous. "Deal." She extended her hand. Elias took it. Her skin was warm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Pack your bags, Elias," she said. "Welcome to the snake pit." Moving into the Sterling Spire was like moving onto a different planet. Elias walked through the private security wing, his boots squeaking on the polished marble. It was absurd. The wing was larger than his entire apartment building. Chloe, however, was in heaven. She had a room painted in soft lavenders, soundproofed not to keep noise out, but to improve the acoustics for the vibration-based sensory toys Olivia had ordered. She didn't have to do all this, Elias muttered, watching Chloe press her cheek against a wall-mounted speaker that pulsed with bass-heavy music. "She wanted to," a voice said. Elias turned. Olivia was standing in the doorway. She looked different here, less armored. She was wearing a simple cashmere sweater and leggings, her feet bare. "She's a happy kid," Olivia said softly. "But she's lonely, Elias. I recognize the look." "She has me," Elias said defensively. "I know. But you're her dad. She needs someone who understands the quiet." Olivia walked over to the speaker, placing her hand next to Chloe's. "When I was her age, I started losing the high frequencies first. Birdsong went away. Then the microwave beep. Then my mother's voice." Elias watched her. "Is that why you let Brandon in? Because he acted like he could be your ears?" Olivia flinched. "He made himself indispensable. He translated the world for me. I didn't realize he was editing the translation until it was too late." Elias stepped closer, his professional demeanor slipping. "I swept the penthouse this morning. I found 3 listening devices. 1 in the study, 1 in the kitchen, and 1—" He paused. "Under your bed." Olivia's face went white. She wrapped her arms around herself. "He was listening? To everything?" "Everything," Elias confirmed grimly. "I destroyed them. I also fired your entire security detail. Half of them were on Brandon's payroll. The other half were incompetent. From now on, nobody comes up this elevator unless I clear them. Not your assistant, not your cleaner, not even the Pope." "People will talk," Olivia whispered. "The board is already saying I'm unstable. If I isolate myself—" "Let them talk," Elias signed, his movements sharp and precise. "Let them think you are weak. That is when we catch them." A small smile touched Olivia's lips. She signed back, her movements elegant but hesitant compared to his rough speed. "You represent a variable they did not calculate." Just then Chloe turned around, beaming. She saw them signing. Her eyes lit up. She ran over and grabbed Olivia's hand, then Elias's, linking them together. "Family?" she signed, looking up with innocent hope. Elias gently pulled his hand away, ruffling Chloe's hair. "Team," he signed back. "We are a team." But as he looked at Olivia and the flush rising on her cheeks, Elias realized the line was already blurring. The first test came 2 days later. Olivia was chairing a strategy meeting via video conference from her study. Elias stood in the corner, ostensibly just a bodyguard, but his eyes were scanning the screen. The board of directors. 12 people who controlled billions of dollars. "Olivia," said a man on the screen. This was Roger Banks, the CFO. He was a silver-haired fox with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We have concerns about the Walsh merger falling through. Brandon is threatening a lawsuit for breach of contract. He says you're unwell." "I am perfectly fine, Roger," Olivia said, her voice steady. "Are you?" Roger pressed. "We've heard reports of a live-in companion, a mechanic. Olivia, we need to discuss your competency to lead." Elias saw Olivia's hand tremble beneath the desk. The audio feed on the call was slightly garbled. a bad connection. She was struggling to lip-read Roger through the pixelated screen. She was missing words. Elias moved. He didn't speak. He walked behind her chair, picking up a pitcher of water to refill her glass. As he poured, he tapped the table with his index finger. 1 tap, 2 taps. He used a code they had established the night before. He is bluffing. Attack his numbers. Olivia stiffened. She glanced at the water glass, then back at the camera. She didn't panic. She trusted Elias. "My personal life is not on the agenda, Roger," Olivia said, cold as ice. "But your Q3 projections are. You're over-leveraged on the Asian tech expansion. If Brandon sues, he opens his own books to Discovery. He won't do it. Call his bluff." Silence on the line. Roger looked stunned. Well, the projections are theoretical. Next item, Olivia commanded. When the screen went black, Olivia slumped back in her chair, letting out a long, shaky breath. She looked up at Elias. "You speak fluent corporate shark," she noted. "I speak fluent bully," Elias corrected. "Rich or poor, they all work the same. They only hit you when they think you're not looking." "Thank you," she said softly. "Don't thank me yet," Elias said, checking his phone. He had a text from Garrett. "Because Brandon isn't suing, he's throwing a party, and you're the guest of honor." The invitation was for the Chicago Tech Innovators Gala. It was the event of the season. To not attend would be an admission of defeat. To attend was walking into a trap. "You don't have to go," Elias said, adjusting his cufflinks. He felt ridiculous in a tuxedo. It was a Tom Ford, tailored within an inch of its life, paid for by the company card. "If I hide, he wins," Olivia said. She emerged from her dressing room, and Elias forgot how to breathe. She wore a gown of emerald silk that draped over her body like water. Her hair was swept up, exposing the long, elegant line of her neck. But it was her eyes that captivated him. They were terrified, but determined. "How do I look?" she asked. "Like $1 billion, Elias said, his voice husky. "And totally dangerous." She stepped close to him. She reached up and fixed his bow tie, her fingers lingering on his chest. "I can't hear the music, Elias. I can't hear the whispers. If I go in there, I'm deaf to the world. You have to be my ears." "I'll be your shadow," he promised. The gala was held at the Art Institute. It was a sea of diamonds, champagne, and fake smiles. As soon as Olivia entered, the room went quiet. The sharks were circling. Elias stayed tight to her left side. He scanned the room constantly. 3 o'clock, he whispered, leaning in like a lover. "Reporter from the Tribune. Ignore him. 9 o'clock. Roger Banks. He's drinking heavily." "And Brandon?" she asked, keeping her smile fixed. 12 o'clock. Coming straight for us." Brandon Walsh looked impeccable and entirely unbothered by the broken wrist Elias had given him, which was now concealed in a black cast that matched his tuxedo. He stopped in front of them, a smirk playing on his lips. "Olivia," Brandon said smoothly, "and the help. Didn't know they let stray dogs in here." Elias didn't blink. They make exceptions for snakes, clearly. Brandon's eyes narrowed. "Enjoy the night, Olivia. It's going to be memorable." He walked away. "What did he mean?" Olivia asked, gripping Elias's arm. "I don't know. Stay close." The trap sprung 20 minutes later. Olivia was on stage, presenting the Innovator of the Year award. Elias was in the wings. Suddenly the venue's sound system screeched with feedback. Then a recording began to play over the speakers. It was Olivia's voice, but it was spliced, edited, and taken out of context. "The board is a joke. I'm going to liquidate the assets. I don't care about the shareholders. I just want the money." The crowd gasped. It was a deep fake, or a heavily edited recording from the bugs Elias had found. It sounded damning. On stage, Olivia froze. She couldn't hear the recording clearly, just the muffled booming of her own voice and the sudden shift in the room's energy. She looked around, confused. The crowd was turning on her. They were booing. She looked to the wings. She looked for Elias. Elias saw the panic in her eyes. She didn't know what was happening. She was drowning in silence while the world screamed at her. Elias didn't think. He walked onto the stage. Security moved to stop him, but he flashed a look so murderous they backed down. He walked right up to the podium, in front of hundreds of people and cameras. He took Olivia's hand. He turned her to face him. "Ignore them," he signed, his hands large and steady in the spotlight. "It is a fake recording. They are trying to humiliate you. Look at me. Only me." Olivia locked eyes with him. Her breathing hitched. "What do I do?" she signed back, her hands trembling. "You finish the speech," Elias signed. "You smile. You show them you are the queen and they are the dirt." Elias turned to the microphone. He grabbed it. The room went silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elias boomed, his voice projecting to the back of the hall without effort. "We apologize for the technical difficulties. It seems someone hacked the system with a desperate, poorly edited AI fabrication. It's flattering that our competitors are so terrified of Miss Sterling that they have to resort to cartoons to fight her." He looked directly at Brandon Walsh in the front row, but Miss Sterling prefers to speak the truth. He stepped back. Olivia stepped forward. She channeled every ounce of rage and pride she had. She delivered the rest of her speech with flawless precision. When she finished, there was a beat of silence, and then applause. Hesitant at first, then thunderous, she had survived. But as they walked off stage, adrenaline crashing, Elias saw police officers waiting at the exit. "Mr. Miller?" a detective asked. "We have a warrant for your arrest." Olivia stepped in front of him. "On what grounds?" "Assault with a deadly weapon and corporate espionage. We found the missing hard drives in his truck. Miss Sterling?" Elias's heart sank. The driver at the warehouse. And the truck. He had left it parked on the street. "It's a setup," Elias said calmly. "Save it for the judge," the cop said, snapping cuffs on Elias's wrists. Elias looked at Olivia. "Go to Chloe. Lock the penthouse. Trust no one." "Elias, no!" Olivia screamed, grabbing his arm as they dragged him away. For the second time in his life, Elias was being taken away from the people he loved. But this time, he wasn't just a dad. He was a man in love with a billionaire, and he had just declared war on the most powerful men in Chicago. Jail was loud. That was the first thing Elias noticed. It was a constant cacophony of shouting, metal clanging, and despair. He sat on the cot in his holding cell, staring at the concrete wall. They had denied him bail. "Flight risk," the judge had said, clearly bought and paid for by Brandon Walsh. It had been 3 days. He had no way to contact Olivia. His phone was confiscated. Garrett, his detective friend, had visited once, looking grim. "It's bad, Elias," Garrett had said. "They found encrypted drives in your truck with Sterling Corp blueprints and bank transfer codes. It looks like you were planning to rob her blind. The narrative is perfect. The bodyguard seduces the lonely heiress to steal her fortune." "You know I didn't do it," Elias said. "I know. But the evidence is physical. Unless we prove it was planted, you're looking at 10 years. "How is she?" Elias asked. "She's barricaded in the penthouse. Brandon called an emergency vote of no confidence. It's happening tomorrow. If they vote her out, she loses the company. And once she loses the power, they'll commit her. Brandon has doctors lined up to testify she's mentally incompetent due to her hearing loss." Elias gripped the bars. "I have to get out of here, Garrett." "I can't break you out, man. I'm a cop." "I don't need you to break me out," Elias said, his eyes hard. "I need you to get a message to Chloe." "To the kid? Why?" "Because Chloe sees things nobody else does, and she has the one thing Brandon didn't account for." "What's that?" "Her iPad." Meanwhile, in the Sterling spire, the silence was suffocating. Olivia sat on the floor of Chloe's room. She hadn't showered in 2 days. She felt paralyzed. Without Elias, the apartment felt like a tomb. Chloe was sitting cross-legged, playing Roblox on her iPad. She seemed unbothered, but Olivia knew better. Chloe was processing. Suddenly, Chloe tapped Olivia's knee. She turned the iPad around. On the screen was a video message. It wasn't a standard text. It was a video from an unknown number. It was Elias. He was in an orange jumpsuit, looking tired but fierce. He was signing, "Chloe, brave girl. I need you to be a spy. Remember the game? Go to the cloud." Chloe frowned in concentration. She tapped the screen, opening her cloud storage app. It was linked to the home security system, something Elias had set up so he could monitor the cameras from his phone, and he had synced it to Chloe's iPad so she could see who was at the door because she couldn't hear the bell. Elias continued signing in the video. "Look at the footage from Tuesday. 3 a.m. The garage." Chloe scrolled. Her small fingers moved deftly. She found the timestamp. She played the video. Grainy black and white footage of the parking garage. Elias's Ford F-150 was parked in the corner. A figure approached the truck. He looked around. He used a Slim Jim to pop the lock. He placed a black bag under the seat. Then the figure turned. He pulled down his mask to wipe sweat from his face. It was Roger Banks, the CFO. Olivia gasped, covering her mouth. "He planted it. We have him." She grabbed the iPad. "Chloe, you're a genius." "No." Chloe grinned and signed, "Daddy is smart." Olivia stood up. The despair evaporated, replaced by a cold, burning fury. She dialed Garrett's number, which Elias had made her memorize. "Detective," Olivia said, "get a warrant. I have the footage. And get Elias out, now." "Miss Sterling," Garrett said, "the vote is in 2 hours. Then drive fast," she commanded. "I'm going to the office." The boardroom on the top floor of the Sterling spire was designed to intimidate. It was a cavernous space of steel, glass, and mahogany, suspended 60 stories above the grey, weeping streets of Chicago. The rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, a rhythmic drumming that usually sounded like white noise. Today, however, it sounded like a war drum. Inside, the atmosphere was so thick it felt difficult to breathe. Brandon Walsh sat at the head of the table. It was Olivia's chair. It was an ergonomic masterpiece of black leather that he had adjusted to be higher than everyone else's. He swirled a glass of amber scotch, Olivia's rare reserve, and looked out at the 12 members of the board of directors. He felt like a god. To his right sat Roger Banks, the CFO. Roger was sweating. He kept dabbing his upper lip with a monogrammed handkerchief, his leg bouncing nervously under the table. Roger knew what they had done. He knew the risk. But Brandon had promised him a payout that would erase his debts and set him up for life in the Cayman Islands. "We need to wrap this up," Roger whispered, glancing at the heavy double doors. "The longer we wait, the more the shareholders get jittery." Brandon chuckled, a low, wet sound. "Relax, Roger. The shareholders will do what they're told. They see a plummeting stock. They panic. We offer them a parachute. They jump. It's basic animal psychology." He stood up, buttoning his charcoal suit jacket. He looked impeccable, despite the cast on his wrist, a lingering souvenir from his first encounter with the mechanic, Elias Miller. The cast was black, to match his soul, though Brandon would have called it branding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brandon began, his voice smooth and projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "I know this is an unpleasant business. Olivia Sterling was a visionary. Her father built this company, and she maintained it." He paused for effect, walking slowly around the table, making eye contact with the board members he had already bribed or bullied. "But we are not running a charity," Brandon continued, his voice dropping to a mournful register. "We are running a conglomerate, and the captain of this ship is sick. We have all seen the reports, the erratic behavior, the isolation, and now the scandal. Bringing a violent criminal into a home, a man currently sitting in a jail cell for corporate espionage." He shook his head sadly. "It breaks my heart, truly. But Olivia is no longer capable of hearing reason, quite literally." A few board members shifted uncomfortably. A woman named Beatrice, the longest-serving member, frowned. "Brandon, are we sure about the mental incompetency filing? It seems extreme. To commit her? It is an act of mercy, Beatrice," Brandon said sharply. "If we leave her in charge, she destroys the legacy. If we remove her, we get her the help she needs in a Swiss facility, and we save the stock price. It is the only humane option." Roger Banks cleared his throat. "I have the motion prepared. A vote of no confidence, followed by the immediate appointment of Brandon Walsh as interim CEO, pending the acquisition merger." "Do I have a second?" Brandon asked. "Seconded," said a man at the far end, refusing to look up from his tablet. "Excellent," Brandon smiled, his teeth white and predatory. "All in favor of removing Olivia Sterling from her position, effective immediately, please raise your hand." Roger's hand shot up, then the man at the end, then two more. Slowly, reluctantly, hands began to rise. Beatrice hesitated, looking at the rain-streaked window, then slowly began to lift her arm. Brandon watched the count. 7, 8. It was done. He had the majority. The motion car. Boom! The sound wasn't a knock. It was the heavy mahogany double doors being thrown open with such force that one of them rebounded off the wall, cracking the plaster. Every head in the room snapped towards the entrance. Standing in the doorway was not a defeated woman. It was not a broken invalid. Olivia Sterling stood framed by the hallway lights. She was dressed in a black dress that was severe in its simplicity, cut sharp across the shoulders, making her look like a judge walking into her own courtroom. Her hair was pulled back tight, exposing her face, pale but set in a mask of cold fury. But it was the shadow behind her that made the blood drain from Roger Banks's face. Elias Miller stepped into the room. He looked nothing like the men at the table. He was still wearing the clothes he had been released in, a grey t-shirt that clung to his broad chest and dark jeans. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. There was a dangerous exhaustion in his eyes, a darkness that spoke of sleepless nights in a holding cell, and a temper barely held in check. He didn't look like a bodyguard. He looked like an executioner. "I object," Olivia said. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the stunned silence of the room, it cut like a razor. Brandon stared, his mouth slightly open. He recovered quickly, his arrogance overriding his surprise. "Olivia, you are not permitted in this building. Your security clearance has been revoked." "By who?" Olivia asked. Walking steadily towards the table, her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Click, 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 a countdown. "By you? You are a guest here, Brandon. You don't own the clearance codes. I am the acting chair," Brandon shouted, pointing a finger at her. "And you are trespassing. Security!" He looked towards the open doors, expecting the uniformed guards to rush in. Nothing happened. "Security isn't coming, Brandon," Elias said. His voice was a deep rumble, a stark contrast to Brandon's polished tenor. Elias walked past Olivia, placing himself between her and the table. He looked at the board members, making eye contact with each one until they looked away. "Why?" Brandon sneered, though his voice cracked slightly. "Did you beat them up too? Is that your solution to everything, you thug?" "No," Elias said calmly. "I didn't have to. I just showed them the movie." "What movie?" Roger Banks squeaked. Elias reached into the back pocket of his jeans. He didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a pink iPad with a cracked screen protector and a sticker of a unicorn on the back. It was Chloe's. Elias slid the iPad down the length of the long mahogany table. It spun smoothly, sliding past the water pitchers and notepads, coming to rest directly in front of Beatrice. "Press play," Elias commanded. Beatrice, trembling slightly, reached out and tapped the screen. The video that played was grainy, shot in the high-contrast black and white of a night vision security camera. But the resolution was clear enough. It showed the underground parking garage of the Sterling Spire. The timestamp in the corner read 3:14 a.m. 3 nights ago. A figure walked into the frame. He looked nervous. He looked around, checking for witnesses. He approached Elias's battered Ford F-150. He used a Slim Jim tool to pop the lock, clumsily, scratching the paint. He opened the door and shoved a black duffel bag under the driver's seat. Then the figure turned to leave. He pulled down his scarf to wipe sweat from his face, looking directly up at the camera he didn't know was there. The face was undeniable. It was Roger Banks. A collective gasp went through the room. Roger stood up, knocking his chair over. That's a deep fake. That's AI. I never... It's time-stamped to the cloud, Olivia said, her voice ice-cold. Uploaded instantly to an off-site server my head of security established. There is no editing. There is no AI. There is just you, Roger, planting stolen hard drives in Elias's truck. She turned her gaze to Brandon. And we all know who holds your leash, Roger. Brandon's face had gone from pale to a mottled red. He was watching his coup disintegrate in real time. He saw the board members slowly lowering their hands. He saw Beatrice look at him with undisguised disgust. He was losing. And Brandon Walsh did not know how to lose. When a narcissist loses control, they don't retreat. They attack. They try to destroy the thing that defeated them. "This is irrelevant!" Brandon screamed, slamming his good hand onto the table. The sound made everyone flinch except Olivia and Elias. "It doesn't matter!" Brandon yelled, saliva flying from his lips. "So what if we planted it? He is a threat. And you—" He turned on Olivia, his eyes full of venom. "You are unfit. Look at you." He gestured wildly at her. "You think you can run a billion-dollar company? You? You can't even hear the rain against the window. You're playing dress-up, Olivia. You're a cripple playing CEO." The word hung in the air, ugly and brutal. "You are broken," Brandon hissed, stepping closer to her, invading her space. "You are defective. You need a man like me to translate the world for you, because without someone to hold your hand, you are nothing but silence. You are a child in a silent movie, and the rest of us are laughing at you." The room was deathly quiet. Beatrice had her hand over her mouth, Elias's fists clenched at his sides. The muscles in his forearms coiled like steel cables. He started to step forward, to tear Brandon apart, but Olivia put a hand on his chest. She stopped him. She looked up at Elias. Her eyes were not filled with tears. They were filled with a terrifying clarity. "Wait," she signed to him. Elias paused, breathing heavily, his eyes locked on Brandon's throat. Olivia turned to face Brandon. She stood just 2 feet away from him. She reached up with both hands to her ears. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled out her left hearing aid. She held it up, letting the light catch the small device. Then she placed it gently on the mahogany table. Then she reached up and removed the right one. She placed it next to the first. She was now profoundly deaf. The background hum of the air conditioning, the drumming rain, the nervous shuffling of the board members, it all vanished. She was in her world now, the world of absolute silence. She looked at Brandon. She saw his mouth moving, spittle flying, but she heard nothing. She saw a small, angry man making noise. He looked ridiculous. He looked weak. She turned to Elias. Elias understood. He stepped forward, not to fight, but to serve. He raised his hands, positioning himself so Olivia could see him clearly. "Tell them," Elias signed. His movements were sharp, powerful, and filled with a grace that mesmerized the room. "Tell them who you are." Olivia spoke. Her voice, unmodulated by her own hearing, was raw and louder than usual. It rang off the glass walls. "I cannot hear you, Brandon," she said. "I cannot hear your insults. I cannot hear your lies. I cannot hear your desperate attempts to salvage your ego." She walked toward the board members, Elias moving with her, mirroring her pace. "Brandon says I am broken," she continued, her eyes scanning the faces of the people who had voted against her. "He says silence makes me weak. He is wrong. Silence is not empty. Silence is where the truth lives." She pointed to the iPad. "While you were listening to his smooth speeches," she said, "I was watching your faces. I saw the greed in Roger's eyes. I saw the fear in Beatrice's. I saw the hesitation in all of you. You listened to his noise, but I saw his intent." She turned back to Brandon. Elias was signing her words to the room, though they didn't need it. But he was also signing to her, translating the room's reaction. "They are afraid," Elias signed. "They are listening." "I built the algorithm that saved this company last quarter," Olivia said, her voice rising. "I did it in a room with no sound, focusing on data while you focused on golf games and martini lunches. My deafness is not a defect. It is my shield against people like you." She slammed her hand onto the table, right next to the hearing aids. "I am Olivia Sterling. I own this building. I own the chair you are sitting in. And I am done letting men like you speak for me." Brandon looked around. He saw the shift. The board was looking at Olivia, not with pity, but with awe. She was terrifyingly competent. "Security!" Brandon screamed again, his voice cracking. "Get them out! He's a felon!" "Actually," a new voice spoke from the doorway. Everyone turned. Detective Garrett walked in, followed by 4 uniformed officers. He was shaking rain off his trench coat. "The felony charges against Mr. Miller have been dropped," Garrett said, walking into the room. "Turns out, fruit of the poisonous tree. Evidence planted by a third party is inadmissible." Garrett looked at Roger Banks. "Mr. Banks, I have a warrant for your arrest. Conspiracy to commit fraud, tampering with evidence, and filing a false police report." Roger Banks let out a whimper and slumped into his chair. "And for you, Mr. Walsh," Garrett said, turning his cold gaze to Brandon, "we have a warrant for insider trading, corporate espionage, and, let's see, kidnapping." Brandon panic-stricken. The walls were closing in. He looked at the window, then at the door, then at Olivia. He snapped. "No!" Brandon roared. He grabbed a heavy glass water pitcher from the table and lunged at Olivia. "You bitch! You ruined everything." It happened in slow motion for everyone else, but for Elias Miller, it was instinct. Elias didn't shout. He didn't waste breath. He moved with the explosive power of a man defending his entire world. As Brandon brought the pitcher down, Elias stepped in. He caught Brandon's forearm in mid-air. The impact was sickening, a heavy thud of bone on bone. Elias didn't just stop the blow. He twisted. He pivoted his hips and drove his shoulder into Brandon's chest, lifting the taller man off his feet. It was a textbook takedown, fueled by months of suppressed rage. He slammed Brandon onto the boardroom table. The wood groaned and cracked under the force. The water pitcher shattered, spraying glass and water everywhere. Brandon gasped for air, winded, pinned by Elias's forearm against his throat. Elias leaned down. His face was inches from Brandon's. His eyes were dark voids. "You made 2 mistakes," Elias whispered, his voice low and guttural, audible only to Brandon and the terrified board members nearby. "1, you touched her. 2, you thought I was just the help." Elias applied pressure. Brandon's eyes bulged. He clawed at Elias's arm, but it was like clawing at iron. "Elias!" Olivia's voice cut through the red haze. Elias froze. He looked up. Olivia was watching him. She couldn't hear the violence, but she could see the rage in his posture. She reached out and touched his shoulder. "Enough," she signed. "He is finished." Elias held the grip for 1 second longer, a reminder, then released him. He stepped back, straightening his t-shirt. "Get him out of here," Elias said to Garrett. The officers hauled Brandon up. He was wheezing, his suit ruined, his dignity shredded. As they dragged him past Olivia, he tried to spit at her, but he didn't have the breath. Roger Banks was crying as he was handcuffed. The door closed behind them. The silence returned to the boardroom. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was electric. Olivia stood at the head of the table. She didn't put her hearing aids back in yet. She looked at the remaining board members, 10 people who had just voted to destroy her life. They looked terrified. Beatrice was trembling. The man at the end of the table was pale. Elias moved to Olivia's side. He tapped her hand. "What do you want to tell them?" he signed. Olivia looked at the board. She took a deep breath. She could fire them all. She could scorch the earth. They deserved it. But she looked at Elias. She saw the steady, grounding presence of the man who had fought for her when she couldn't fight for herself. He hadn't fought with anger. He had fought with purpose. She picked up her hearing aids and placed them back in her ears. She adjusted the frequency. The sound of the rain rushed back in. The hum of the city. The breathing of the people in the room. "Gentlemen?" "Beatrice," Olivia said softly. "Olivia," Beatrice stammered. We were misled. We didn't know." "You didn't ask," Olivia corrected her. "You assumed that because I couldn't hear, I couldn't lead. You assumed that my disability made me a victim." She walked to the head of the table, her chair. She sat down. "I am not going to fire you," Olivia said. The room exhaled. "Because firing you is too easy," she continued. "If I fire you, you take your golden parachutes and you leave. No," she leaned forward, her eyes hard as diamonds. "You are going to stay. You are going to work. And you are going to fix the damage Brandon did. You are going to work nights. You are going to work weekends. You are going to claw back every cent of value this company lost in the last week. And you are going to do it under my direct supervision." She looked at Elias. "And Mr. Miller," she said, her voice softening just a fraction. "We'll be overseeing the transition. Any security concerns, any loyalty concerns, go through him." Elias crossed his arms and stared at the board. He looked like a wolf guarding the gate. "Any questions?" he asked. There were no questions. "Good," Olivia said. She picked up the agenda file that Brandon had left on the table. She dropped it into the trash can. Meeting adjourned. The elevator ride down to the lobby was quiet. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Olivia leaned her head against the mirrored wall of the elevator. "You okay?" Elias asked. She looked at him. She reached out and took his hand. His knuckles were bruised. "I couldn't hear what you said to him," she said softly, "when you pinned him to the table." Elias smiled, a tired, crooked smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. "I just told him he violated the dress code." Olivia laughed. It was a genuine laugh, bright and free. She squeezed his hand. "We have to go pick up Chloe," she said. "She's waiting at the precinct with Garrett's wife." "She's going to want pizza," Elias warned, "and she's going to want to know if we won." The elevator doors pinged open. The lobby was empty, save for the night security guard who nodded respectfully as they passed. They walked out into the cool Chicago night. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet asphalt and ozone, the smell of a storm that had passed. Olivia stopped on the sidewalk. She turned to Elias. "Elias," she said, "you saved my life. You saved my company. I don't know how to pay you back." Elias looked at her. He looked at the woman who had fought a boardroom of sharks with nothing but silence and courage. He thought about his empty apartment in Queensbury. He thought about the way Chloe lit up when she entered the penthouse. He stepped closer. He raised his hands. "I don't want payment," he signed. Olivia watched his hands. Her breath hitched. "What do you want?" she signed back. Elias lowered his hands. He cupped her face. He didn't need signs for this. "I want to go home," he said. "With you." Olivia smiled, and it was brighter than the skyline behind her. She leaned into his touch. "Let's go home." Elias opened the passenger door of his beat-up Ford F-150. Olivia Sterling, the billionaire CEO, climbed in, sitting on the cracked vinyl seat as if it were a throne. Elias got in the driver's side, started the engine, and drove them away from the obsidian tower, into the traffic, into the noise, and into the future. And that is how a single gesture in a coffee shop toppled an empire. They thought silence was a weakness, but for Elias and Olivia, it was their secret weapon. They proved that you don't need to shout to be heard, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is listen. If this story moved you, if you believe that true love is about having someone's back, no matter what, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What do you think? Should Olivia have forgiven the board or fired them all? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.